And we're now in the season of Faras. Having seen one now on all 3 maps in A-Road and Bunny A. Been pretty notorious for the opportunity to see one as well. Xavier, again, taking a decent amount of damage, walking in. Seeing if they can make it to the point without losing any members would be nice.
That time of the year, season, the weather is cloudy with a chance of justice. And I do like it. We've seen Hashimi generally get the better end of that head-to-head at least. As I say that, he takes a few chunks, and we've got Bello on the Doomfist again. Is struggling to get much success on it.
So the thing here is THK plays both the Widowmaker and the Fire for this team, so you're not going to see the Widowmaker at least for now, but you also probably wouldn't see it for A anyway. It does get a first pick opening, so Xavier 6v5 to start things off.
It's probably where Xerath if he wants to commit the res, if it is at all possible. Nice counter trade though onto these. So again, now Tay maybe wants to try to commit a res. Bello goes down, just eats 2 quick shots. THK just find a counter trade, but the counter trades are a little bit dicey here for Xavier. They're not clean, and Greenleaves do have a closer respawn. Even with Sonaira going down, they've already recovered from the loss of Cloud. He's back in the mix now, and I don't know if Xavier are going to stick around here much longer.
Well, the important death is actually Tay. But aside from that, they were 1-up basically the entire fight. But now that Tay's gone, their main healer, Lone Phil's drops as well. They failed to get the first tick, and they actually pushed most of Greenleaves off that initial point, but couldn't quite stay on long enough without it being contested for 1 tick to come through. Greenleaves now sitting on 2 ultimates, still pretty comfortable on A.
This is an awkward spot for Xavier. They need to charge up ultimates, but they are inherently behind the 8 ball on really all of them. That's an EMP connecting onto both airborne members plus Queen, and it's an early pickup onto THK, who cannot be rezzed, certainly not before Tay goes down. And it's just a clean and easy fight win here for Greenleaves.
And it's 2 extra pickups as well because, okay, now making that 3. I was technically still 2 because you had 3 EMP members who all eventually go down. 2 extra members who are not EMP'd who also go down. That's 5 off a single EMP and a pulse bomb. Greenleaves can be pretty happy about how that one turned out. 2 minutes now remaining. Xavier still yet to get any real progress on that first point. They are coming up to their own ultimates, and they need to see some value here because if they fail to win off an EMP and this Rocket Barrage combo, they're probably not taking the point.
How many times have we seen an EMP fail like that, especially out from a Lone Phil's? Thea is already dead. That's not a hot start. And now they're doubting whether they actually want to go ahead and commit this EMP. Goes sky high for it, but THK is already dead by the time the commit comes in. Xavier just so slow on the play here. Greenleaves, it's so telegraphed. They know that that's what Xavier want to do, so they just take the fight long before a Lone Phil's is even in position to make anything happen. They've committed the res to keep THK in the mix, but they've had to retreat anyway, so they're not really any better off.
And the 1v1 assignment here, and in some cases 2v2, which is to say the pharmacy of Greenleaves going for the pharmacy of Xavier, puts himself away from the rest of the team. So if you want an EMP, you're not going to get all the members. You're just going to get those flying members, and they didn't even clean those up. Speaking of cleanup, Xavier is still in this fight with 1 minute left. They haven't reset yet. They're using ultimates, and now they're not going to have them for the following fight.
You wonder what's the point there. That's committed up. They already lost a bunch of members, and yeah, they must be. They even got a sleep onto Sonairo earlier on, and a bunch of DPSs started hovering around him like vultures, so Greenleaves went, all right, let's go pick off the squishy DPSs. They did that. Sonairo didn't even die.
And the problem is also, looking back at the EMP, is yes, you got both the pharmacy members, but because you killed the Fire and not the Mercy here, eventually the res comes through, undoing the work of the EMP entirely. Xavier now, less than 30 seconds left to go, still not a single tick, fresh composition, 2 ultimates available, 3 on the side of Greenleaves.
And a lot more members vulnerable to an EMP. You only see 2 of them getting caught in that. Bello does find a nice pulse bomb, but Queen's snapping, and THK was still hacked, loses the mech finally, and Nano Boost committed onto Queen to at least keep him in the fight, keep him alive, but he's still not exactly in a favorable spot. 10 finds Thea with the pulse bomb, and it's now really only Queen and Bello. Bello's hacked, Queen is dead, Lone Phil's is dying to reset, trying to get back here on the Soldier. I don't think he's even going to be able to touch the point. That is another full hold for Greenleaves.
And that almost couldn't have gone worse. In fact, yeah, you pretty much can say it couldn't have gone worse because you got nothing on that A offense.
Could have had a disconnect, that would have been worse.
But what would still result in you not getting a tick on A. So really, it couldn't be worse. I guess dignity-wise, it could have been worse. But for Xavier, let's also touch on the fact that they put a lot of resource into trying to shut down Xerath to prevent the last res from coming through. Saw the nano boost onto Queen, on the Winston, chasing Xerath down, who's the Mercy player, takes him down to 1 HP or something close to that effect. Doesn't die. Xerath stays alive the entire time, and then insult to injury, gets the res onto Sonairo anyway. So it's just unbelievable, the kind of value that each member is getting out of the Greenleaf side, and the lack of value coming out of Xavier. I mean, you are seeing a few decent plays. It's, commend Bello for, a nice stick at the start of one of the fights and doing a few things, but otherwise, man, it's just, it's not going well.
But you look at the number of sticks 10 has managed to get by comparison. Again, it's like it's decent out of Bello, but it's just better out of 10 right now. And I mean, it honestly feels like Xavier are unsure about how to shut down the game plan of Greenleaves. And on the other side of that, they seem like they're either unsure of their own game plan or they're sure, but they massively telegraph.
And by the way, THK has had a decent matchup into Hashimi in the fact that, okay, you look at the opening fight there as well, won a couple of duels, couldn't quite get any ticks on there, and they need at least a tick because guess what? They've actually lost the series. The best they can do is draw. Can't come back anymore. Congrats to Greenleaves. That's officially a win in their books. Xavier now fighting from behind. It's all about the map differential, which we note is still important, especially if you're Greenleaves, because you may still win or lose and get through the season or not make it through based on what that map differential is.
So Greenleaves coming out on the offense now. Once again, fighting themselves as much as they were on Paris, only needing to get a third, and for what it's worth, they are already guaranteeing themselves a win in the series because best case scenario for Xavier is a tie.
So again, yeah, map differential will be important. I would say in this case, for kind of both sides, Xavier need to kind of hold on to this. And if they can maybe secure this draw, that would prevent Greenleaves from making out ahead. Because you know that Xavier can still try and beat Greenleaves later down the line with the map differential. And look, this is a decent start, taking 50 down. THK stays alive too, that would be great.
It's reasonable, to say the least, but they are also pressuring the point, and that's what's going to end up counting for more. The Rez is already there on 50, and Oshimi, if he continues to get the better end of this mirror matchup against THK, then that should help, but they're not quite getting that value just yet. They lose scenario on the ground as well. Now he ends up going down to THK. THK does get picked off himself. Xavier has a closer respawn here, though, so Greenleaves probably just going to have to retreat here.
I was going to say Greenleaves have the time to work with. They can wait for their respawners. I mean, as can Xavier, but Greenleaves can set up for where the next player is 10. Speaking of setup, he's been on this high ground forever, unchallenged, he's getting free damage in there. It's a bit of a ticking time bomb against Xavier because at some point, he's going to find that headshot and somebody on Xavier is going to go down.
It's almost the same as what we saw on their offense on Paris. It's, all it takes is you get the one pick. Haven't got it just yet, but that is a huge EMP, and with that, Greenleaves are going to make their march in. Xavier are going to make their stand, and unfortunately, their legs appear to be made of jelly.
They do get Bello back into play. Okay, Supercharge might be able to do something here for about 1 second.
Queen's barely staying on the point here, and now the Dragon Strike beautifully cuts off any kind of respawn and reinforcement for him. He's barely staying alive, credit to him. Now Dragon Strike the other way out from Alone Pills actually finds out Xeraphis, so Xavier, jelly-legged as they may be, seem to be just barely keeping themselves upright, but man, Greenleaves are doing their darndest to at least keep Xavier off the point. Xavier are not going to play that game, though. They are going to start to find some picks and force Greenleaves back a bit.
And Xavier, they still have 6 members here. THK is going to be able to stay alive. 50 down again. Starting to believe that this might happen. Our Greenleaves just losing far too many. Haven't actually gotten that first tick. And they only need 1, but they are not able to get this as long as Xavier managed to keep members on that point. Queen's been rock solid, just maintaining feet on there. We talk about jelly legs. Well, maybe if the ground's shaking, this prevents them from falling over.
Oris has got an ability for that called Fortify. Can't really think
Leg
of...
braces.
Yep.
Fortify the knees.
Those are 2 very different things. So Xavier, they've got some ultimates to back this one up now, and that may just help them. 50 got a huge EMP last time, and it didn't pay off for them. This is a good defense as well. They've committed themselves a nano boost onto Bello, who's starting to chase out some members. They've only bounced Nairo, though, so now it's starting to be a bit more limited in terms of total value.
It's going to be 1 ultimate for a single reset, so you're going to buy, about 10 seconds here if you're Xavier, which isn't really worth it for 1 ultimate. However, they were a little concerned about Bello going down. You'll take any small win you can get at the moment. There will be an EMP coming through. Bello should really not be affected by this if he stays. Ooh.
Well, like I said, the weather forecast is, and it's going to be 2 on the side of THK, critically getting his counterpart in it as well. The Rez is there, but THK then finds the Rezer. Oshimi's starting to fight back, though, now that he's a little bit more awake and alive, but Greenleaves have lost a lot of members. They have to still wait for some respawners.
Lofell's nearly on that Dragon Strike, could be very important here. Speaking of respawners, Xavier got a few more, a little bit quicker. 5 seconds left to go now. Green Leafs have to touch the point.
Scenario barrels his way on with a Dragon Strike at his back. That's a bit of an awkward Dragon Strike up sky high for a lone Phil's got a bit of pressure on 10, but nowhere near enough to really threaten his life.
Down.
An extra halt, though, will keep him in the line of fire for long enough to die. Bello gets a pick coming in onto Cloud. Xerafi has to commit the res, but Taken match that. Xavier are ahead in this fight. The Nano Boost as well onto Bello, and finally we see the Doomfist starting to pull some weight and certainly stop pulling punches. It is end up going to be Xavier holding. It is a draw. It preserves some dignity, but what it does not do is preserve their chance at a win.
And now you really wish that Xavier had gotten that one check on their own offense. They came so close on that initial attempt. They just needed a little bit more time, a few more kills. This would have been a different result. This would have been the one map victory for them. We would have taken this to, taken it to map 4 where it's still not really clear yet. Okay, now Xavier's starting to come back. I would even argue, even at this stage, Xavier kind of coming back. It may be slightly too slow in the series, so much so that they can't rescue it. But hey, you get one more map here. That's only a +1 for the side of
Green
Leaves, who would only be kind of equalizing map score in a sense, despite being one match ahead.
I mean, it would be something, right? What it would mean really is that Green Leaves are more threatened by that bottom 2 still. Like we talked about how important map differential would be for them, assuming they pick up a win because of their match next week. But the tighter map differential, I mean, the threat is still there. It's just a little bit more present. The reality is for Xavier, this is still mostly going to come down to how they perform against Cyclone Coupling. I will say, though, just in the context of Numbani, Xavier looked a little bit more awake, a little bit more alive, and a bit more clearer on what their objective was. Green Leaves as well on the offense, they weren't as tight as they have been so far. Like we saw a 5-man EMP come out there with just little to no follow-up. They got 1 kill off it. That's just, it's nowhere near enough.
I will say as well on the Xavier defense, because they had guys like Bello on a Torb and then a Doomfist towards the end, which is where he gets most of his value, is when he comes out as a surprise that is not able to be directly countered. You also have THK playing Farah, Alone Phil's on the Hanzo as well, so you have a lot of more playmaking potential. It's been more consistent for Xavier, if you even remember back to Well, which is the last time we did see the DBS come through, than say when they were just sticking onto a 3-3 or 3-2-1. So going into map number 4 now, we'll wonder if this can be the one that they do bring it back in terms of getting one map, or will it be still a 3-0 in line for the Sun Green Leaves? Before we hit in though, let's go ahead and find out a little bit more about Escort.
Welcome to Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is Escort. 2 teams face off as either defenders or attackers. This is the payload. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to escort the payload along a set path containing 3 checkpoints. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby at the same time. To get moving again, attackers must clear away the defenders by force. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. If even one attacker is near the payload when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared off the payload or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
Rialto map 4 coming up on your screen. And the 3-0 is important in this context because it is still better than a 3-1, which would be a +2 on map differential. 3-0 is a +3. So that is still the 1 extra that Green Leaves can secure here, which would put them then 2 ahead of Xavier. It would be a +2 differential over Xavier overall on the standings with 1 extra match win. So coming down to tiebreakers, they can still maybe edge things out come week 7.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is assuming Green Leaves win. The important thing is actually going to be the map differential. This is if they lose next week, by the way. If they were to lose, then the important thing is the map differential between them and the loser of Xavier versus Cyclone Coupling. That's where the tiebreaker comes in, and this is why we say every map is counting so much. And
I believe the winner of
it would be if
Cyclone Xavier, because that would be the team.
So the one.
So we're talking of both teams on a 3-4, right? That's where if Green Leaves win, they'd be on a 4-3. They wouldn't have to care. But if both teams are on a 3-4, then that differential matters here. And that is the assumption that we are making going into this one.
Calculator.
Siri, what is Xavier's chances here, Siri?
What is the script for Season 2? I can't remember who finishes 7th place. Alexa, this is so sad.
Alexa, play map 4.
I like how they didn't even give a name to Google Home. It's just, hey, Google.
That's smart, because then you get to advertise Google every time you say it. Anyway, it's going to be the dive, the triple DPS dive from Xavier. Greenleaf's going to play Orisa Hog defense. Widow Pharmacy, 4 in a row now, at least on the pharmacy side of things. 4 times the charm.
Well, Greenleaves know what they want to play in the playoffs, assuming they get there. Xavier, still a little unsure. Bello's going to.
I'm pretty sure they got there. I'm pretty sure 3 wins, they got there.
They could still lose next week. It's still possible. Again, we need Siri to do the math for us. We're still waiting on that one. Problem is, none of us own iPhones, so
that's true. Xavier, they don't own this card at the moment. They are struggling to make anything happen with this objective. Just trying to get back on there for the time being, catching up on members, waiting for respawners.
Sort of limping their way on and then back off, struggling to not get anyone picked off, just taking so much pressure. And I would say from all angles, but really it's just this main firing line down the alleyway and then a bit of crossfire from 10, but it's enough. Like, again, this is another pick. Credit to 10 for that. He's got the only 2 kills of the game so far.
Might make it even more as well if he can find another one. Xavier just constantly down a member at all times. And this is where you want to see them just shake off those leg braces. Be like Forrest Gump, start sprinting and then just never stop.
Run, Xavier, run. That is my impression of a character from the film Forrest Gump.
Xavier got a lot to do because 2:30 to make it all the way across.
It's a good pickup. They were aware that THK was around there.
Might still be a res though, Xerfi has popped the Valkyrie Cloud.
And if not,
it's going to respawn.
10 has at least made it even, now more than even. And now Tay under pressure as well. May live or nope, will not, but Pulse Bomb goes wide from Bello, who had otherwise got a pick on Sonairo. So it's still Greenleaves just having no trouble, even when they lose the early member, and it's a high-impact one. They have no trouble making better counter trades.
10 has just been the star so far. I mean, he's landing so many shots in a row. Every single time you think that Xavier might be evening things up or might be at a player advantage, 10 says, I'm going to take 2 for every 1 you take from me.
He's going to take 10. Get it? Because that's his name.
I'll take 50.
I was going to say 50's got a lot to live up to in that case. THK, again, speaking of, takes a big chunk. Far more than 10 hit points. Sonairo goes down. That's the supercharger having been committed as well. THK has got the nano boost on top of the Dragon Blade. Good sleep. At least interrupts the Rocket Barrage. And that may have even been a damage boosted Rocket Barrage. I'm not quite sure. But at the end of the day, it is Xavier finally finding a leg up in the fight.
And just dogpiling onto the card itself, getting that fire down early, chasing Xerfi away to make sure there's not going to be a res in play either. And now applying pressure onto 10. THK is in the right place, but also the wrong place.
Yep, the wrong.
As he dies.
Exactly. It's under the front of the sights of 10. And unfortunately, them's the breaks. They also don't have a res. They just have to wait for the respawners. And in that time, Greenleaves can reinforce around the cart.
The Dragon and the Spider's Web. That's so noble for that book. Xavier now, 60 seconds left to go.
Always wanted to see the crossover of the girl who kicks the Green Hornets. That's Sonairo getting picked off early, though, so again, Xavier have found a good leg up in this fight. They're the ones with the better firing lines now, and you see that in THK getting a nice headshot onto Xerfi. Then there's also THK making the swap over onto the Widowmaker to take advantage of these sight lines, was previously on the Genji, so this is Xavier going to be capping point A.
Yep, that's going to do it for them. THK got enough kills there. THK go down, Hoshimi goes down eventually, which is going to be a stagger kill. You're likely to see a potential swap here. I know that Xerfi does a Valkyrie, so maybe they stay on... Nope, they do not stay on the fire anymore, which is pretty typical for B onwards here. Valkyrie's still useful, so Xerfi will likely change after that's been expended. Greenleaves double snipe for the time being.
Compositions are almost mirrored if it weren't for the fact that Tay is on the Zenyatta. I wonder if even that maybe becomes a change. It's sort of 50-50, right? Because Xerfi's probably the one who wants to change up to Valkyrie. You don't have the Pharah anymore.
You could probably change onto Zenyatta yourself, onto a Lucy or something like that if you're Xerfi afterwards. Xavier now have a decent amount of walk-in with Sonairo. Does drop the supercharger. Queen can match.
It's a good catch, by the way, onto 10, but it's now been a counter trade to come in, and THK is taking some pressure. Xavier are keeping a good amount of momentum here, though. Finding Xerafi is big. That's the Valkyrie gone as well, so we should see the swap out of Xerafi. And this is Xavier getting aggressive, the nano boost, the whole hog, and the transcendence. It only earns them 1 pick, but it does create them a lot of space for the cart. If they can keep getting picks here, they can still turn this into a cap.
Oh, nearly got the hook there.
Nope, gets hooked instead by 50.
And 50 might be sacrificing his life here if he's not careful. That's exactly what happens. Xerafi as well.
Yep. That's what the extra picks does to you. That's what the space does for you. Green Leaves felt forced to play for the cart, not just let it go over for free, and they end up going in with Xavier prepared to take the fight and get those extra picks to secure the cap.
And by the way, so far, the Sarissa Hog is working well for Xavier because they actually have cart control. That's what you need. You're playing a composition where you can move along with it, put your shield on top, play for the halt hooks as you're progressing along. And for Green Leaves, defensively, they need to find somewhere where they can just anchor themselves in.
Whew, that's a nasty hook on Bello. THK does at least pre-trade that by finding Hoshimi and Rez is in either way.
Scenario lives.
It's actually Tay who's made the swap over onto the Mercy in the end. Xerafi stuck on it. Scenario, like you said, lives by the breadth of a hair. And Xavier are still marching this card forward. A nice catch on 10.
And that's the point, though. Because Xerafi's so low just by living, they cannot contest the objective. So Xavier continue moving forward, continue getting picks, and they might be able to do this here.
Bello's just standing right in front of the backline, walks past the tanks as though they're not even there, and Alonefills have done the same. He got such an incredible sightline. He absolutely destroys so many members. Now with Dragon Strike to stop respawners from reinforcing. It will be the cap out for Xavier, and you just sit here going, where's that been all series?
And 10 receives a nano boost towards the end as well. This is just a complete snowball all throughout C, and that's really a difficult thing to do. Most teams will be able to find a reset versus the attackers when you're defending, because there's just going to be a space where you've used too many ultimates, the defenders are able to suddenly put their feet in the ground somewhere, and then C will become a stalemate where, or less of a stalemate if the defense is winning, where unfortunately the attack just hits a brick wall and progresses no further. This is where Xavier lost a lot of time on A. They didn't get a very good time to push into B with, and on B it was a pretty decent offense. Going on C, even better. The fact they finished the map, considering how poorly A went, is honestly a huge deal for this team.
So this is that firing line that Alonefills was able to find around the side, and as he's moving up here, you see he'll receive a nano boost as well. Sorry, he does not. That is just the highlight from the Stormbow, but I mean, he got kills, right? That's what counts.
The self-buff on that one. He'll do it himself.
Yeah.
Xavier now
I'll boost myself.
looking pretty decent. 209 as a Rialto time bank. I mean, Green Leaves would be pretty happy to get a 209 themselves.
Yep.
Where you can maybe expect Green Leaves to have a decent run is probably A, where they get to really lean into their Widowmaker Fire composition, assuming that's what they want to play. On B and C, we'll have to see what happens, because that's when they couldn't quite play the Fire anymore. And I do want to note, despite 10 having a really good performance on Widow, it's the Fire that has caused more problems over the course of the series.
This is now Green Leaves' opportunity to try and preserve that map differential. That's the reality of there being that draw in the mix there, is suddenly the map differential is so swingy. You could walk away with a +3, could walk away with just a +1, and you don't want it to just be a +1. That still puts you in that danger zone.
It means that despite winning one extra full match, you've only got one map extra. It's not really comfortable at all. 10 sniping early as well, back onto the Fire. So this is, again, the composition that's been doing wonders for Green Leaves, being matched by Xavier now as well with the extra Hans. So Xavier should be able to get a decent amount done, because their DPSs have also been good.
Also worth noting that it's actually Bello going onto the Farah for the purposes of this one, because they want to keep THK on the Widowmaker. And unfortunately, he's not going to be on the Widowmaker because he is dead. Alonefills finds himself cut off by 50. The Rez will get committed, but Tay's going to pay for it with his own life, and I don't think there's much THK can really still do here, especially not with Bello down.
And it's been a slow bleed out for Xavier here, where eventually you're going to feel like they'll just crumble over, lose consciousness, and sink or swim or something. Green Leaves now haven't lost a single member until now. Scenario finally drops.
And Xerafi could just go in for a res here anyway. 10 finds Tay.
Second death for Tay, which means no extra res.
There is
this will be a cap.
Arrow. It's effectively no members lost here, in that Green Leaves still have all 6 on the cart, having also got the cap now, and still members going down 10, just straight flexing while Hashimi finishes off THK from the skies.
Just buying time there, ducking and weaving. Can't die in that scenario. And for Xavier now, where do they set up? They're going to go on the stairs, already giving up that first opening street phase. And for Green Leaves, big question now is, how much longer do they get to play Pharmacy for? Because we noted that this was going to be the start of Rialto, where it does become hard for Fire to get the value.
especially as they start to come around to some of these less favorable areas.
Got to clean that one up.
Yeah, they are going to be able to find 50. Took a little bit of time, but the biotic grenade, the anti-heal really does help out there. Unfortunately, Xerafi can still commit a res, so it's still even numbers, but not anymore. It's not. Scenario went down, and you go, oh, well, maybe Xavier, but then Hashimi presses the button, and that's all she wrote.
And this is where maybe a lone force can be a pretty tricky Dragon Strike out, but you're going to probably find him dead pretty soon, which will actually stagger the defense a lot more, because Xavier needs 6 members.
Another yikes amount of damage on 50, but this time he's not bio-nated, so he can just heal back up. And now 50 keeping the pressure on. They find the back line, and this is exactly what Green Leaves have been doing this entire map. They get a fight, they get picks after that, and they just keep the cart going.
And honestly, it's kind of cute. Okay, you drop the Dragon Strike here, but now you're 4v6, and now you're going to lose another member if you're not careful.
They are able to even commit a res onto Cloud. Oh, that's a nice catch, actually. Bello into 50, partially with the Nano Boost. And the Nano Boost needed to be committed, partially just to keep him alive as well. But they've made it count for something a little bit more than just that. Nearly got that additional hook, but honestly, the kills speak for themselves. They don't need the hook at that point. They have finally found a point to anchor the defense.
So this reset is super important, because now Green Leaves more than likely will be forced to swap comps. If they don't, they may find themselves in a really tough spot. This is where they will lose a lot of time, because A is where you expect them to be good. B and C is going to be hard, especially pushing around this corner. You have Hashimi now onto the Hanzo, 10 stays on the Widow for now. Xerafi still on the Mercy just for the extra damage boost, but Xavier have all the ultimates. Xavier have point control. Xavier now are in a much better position than they have been. Lose A, but still hold on B or C, that's a map win.
Exactly, right? And, I mean, we see that happen more often than not anyway on Rialto. Like, capping A, even with a lot of time, does not mean you fully cap out C. Even if you start to get all the way up to it, we see teams lose like full 5-6 minute kinds of times around that C point one way or another. So certainly not out of the question for Xavier to still pick up the map win here. And even then, there's the world where it goes to time bank, but Xavier with 209, that's a pretty respectable time bank for Rialto. They could still go into it with an advantageous position.
You got to remember, before Havana came out, Rialto, I believe, was the hardest map to fully cap out. So it still really holds up as a very difficult map to finish. The first corner on B is absolutely deadly. Then you got one archway, very narrow to push through, a very small double door section going to C. Both of those chokes are very hard to get through for an attacking team. So multiple points of failure where you can just lose all your time, and you need a big snowball. This is why it's incredible that Xavier finished the map with the time they had, because they had less time going to B and C, but they had such momentum going in. It just didn't seem like there was any defense happening for the side of Green Leaves. Very opposite to what we've seen so far, which is where Green Leaves just constantly had one member down. And in this defense for Xavier, up until this very point, they constantly had one member down. But
that's the difference, right? As Green Leaves got all their good defense early on in the map, Xavier, on the other hand, have found it a little bit later on in the map, and also in a really good spot. You compare to where Green Leaves were holding, it's right on that first corner. Look, it looks very brutal, and it's very impressive, but the reality is, strategically, that's further from the defender's respawn, whereas here, Xavier are starting to make their stand much closer to their respawn than Green Leaves.
And it's great if you get that full hold onto A, but otherwise, if you have to finish the map, which Xavier forcing you to do, work still ahead for the side of Green Leaves, and they still hold on to at least the whole hog here.
Woo!
Might get a playo ad as well.
Tay to the rescue there.
Slippery spider.
Yeah. Bello finds Scenario as well, just getting aggressive with the whole hog, knowing that 50 was trying to get tricky around the side. They're finding openings. It's very low value whole hog though on balance.
And Xavier, okay, they have a lot less ultimates to play with now, at least for this infra site. It's going to be, I guess if you're Green Leaves waiting it out, 10 doesn't want to poke his head out for sure. This will let Xavier kind of walk up slightly.
Nice hook. Can they finish 50 off? Not with that biotic grenade from Cloud.
Gotta be careful of the retreat, because this is where Green Leaves can catch a member, and they do.
Yeah, and it's a pretty brutal one as well. Tay does have a res, and they are just enough in cover to get that out. Halt hook not quite connecting. It does connect though on the side of Green Leaves, so that's going to be the advantage to them now. Looking to push forward, looking to pick up another one. As soon as that hook is off cooldown, that's someone who might die. 50 even in the middle of the Dragon Strike can just tank it with all the healing in the pocket.
He also had the Nano Boost for a slight while as well. Needs a bit more healing to get this done. 10's back alive. This could be another pick, it is.
There it is, another hook, another death. And even with Xavier finding that pick, it got rezzed back anyway. So Green Leaves are at full fighting force, and you can't say the same for Xavier. You do see Scenario going down though, so Xavier could still find some kind of defense. Tay is to pop the Valkyrie. This actually could be 50 in a bit of trouble, especially with the hook. He's a bit more cut off. His team was already partially retreating. He ends up going down.
And that's going to be 2 members, 3 members now. Xavier still managed to hold, and you note that, okay, Greenleaf started winning. However, what was the problem there? The cart positioning too far back. This is about where they pushed originally. And then that cart moved backwards. Now they staggered spawns. Greenleafs, by the time they get back to the cart, assuming they get back there even quickly enough, if it's not because they lose another member, the cart will slide back further. They're going to have to redo all that work.
Big brain plays there from Alone Phils, knowing that with the headshot on Cloud, Xerafi would go, I might as well res that, and he knew exactly where they were because he killed Cloud with a sonic arrow. He had full vision.
And by the way, 10 swapping over to the Ashe now, and you notice that Xavier are swapping, they had Bello onto Hog for a while, THK onto this Doomfist, so they're not running a Widowmaker anymore. 10 doesn't need a counter snipe, he needs more frontline damage, and Ashe is going to give you that.
Once again, a hook onto Bello. They go ahead and commit a nano boost into him straight away, but with the anti-heal, he just goes down anyway. Sorry, that was a nano boost out from Cloud, my apologies, but at any rate, it's still a death, and Shimi goes down to the counter trade, but Xavier really starting to struggle here, unable to commit the res onto Bello thanks to Tay going down, so now they've got to really dig deep, and Queen, yeah, probably 50 with the whole hog, they're going to be able to run down the mow him over, and Queen caught Nap, and unfortunately is going to go down as well.
This whole hog could be big. Look at the overtime as well. We're about to kick into it. Less than 10 seconds now remaining, and Bello's going off.
Yeah, came into the rescue, absolutely burning hot as well, and this is 10 way away around the backside. He does find a couple of kills at least, but he's still going to wait for the rest of his team. He's still in a vulnerable position. The tanks of Xavier are to the point, and THK, he knows exactly what 10's up to. That's going to be the hold from Xavier. Just when it looked like Greenleafs were getting the fight to make it happen, Bello comes in like dynamite.
And speaking of Bello, I mean, that was really good towards the end there, but you also got to really think about THK, because what he did was swap off the Widow, swap back onto the Widow after he sees that 10 has changed. Again, 10 not needing to go for a Widow duel anymore, goes on to the more close range sniper of the Ashe, and then THK is like, well, now I'm going to counter snipe you, which is exactly what happened. So off the back of this, it's a +1 only for Greenleafs, and now you really wish that on Numbani, Xavier got that one tick, because we would be going to a map 5. Xavier could actually be winning this. They've definitely woken up now. They're having a very good game by the time we're ending Rialto. Yes, we still have to talk about that being a bit of an issue. Yes, the pharmacy plus Widowmaker is still a bit of an issue for Xavier to deal with. But outside of that, going on to Nepal, it's not just going to be pharmacy Widow the entire time. In fact, it's not really a good Widow map at all. You have to imagine things start to look better for Xavier going into Nepal. And that could have been the 3-2 dream completed.
This is also where Xavier, I mean, they've got to be pleased at least they started to turn it back around. That's going to matter a lot more for them next week.
Gives them the confidence to say we could have won.
Yeah, and that's what should give them the confidence, like I said, next week to pick up the win, because that's going to be the more critical win. That's the one where you're really fighting for survival. This week, it would have been nice. It would have given you a bit more of a safety net, a bit more of a buffer, but next week is the one where like the Sharks are nipping at your heels and you're trying to pull yourself back onto deck, right? Like that's the one that's really going to count for a lot. I also think with this as well, with Greenleafs picking up the win, just for what it's worth, it is slightly safer for the overall 2 Japanese teams. Like, we're not going to see both of them getting sent home. And if I'm not mistaken as well, carry the 1. Because we've got Xavier now should be on 2 and 4, tied with Cyclone Coupling. Greenleafs are on 3 and 3, could go down to 3 and 4. Because Xavier play against Cyclone Coupling, the loser is on 2-5, the winner is on 3-4. Which means there is no situation still where Greenleafs can fall into 7th place.
Greenleafs can lose to Fire Society and be in 3-4.
But the loser,
but then they can't.
The loser of Xavier would be on 2 and 5.
You're right. So
if Greenleafs had lost here, it would have been possible for Xavier to still lose next week and end up in bottom 2. So, because Greenleafs won, they're safe.
So what can happen is Xavier can still steal number 5 away, 5, and push Greenleafs down to number 6, and that would be the case where, because there was a +1 from today, that evens things out to a -3 and a -3 for both sides. So both Xavier and Greenleafs are equal on map score now after this particular match, where Greenleafs are still 1 match ahead. So Xavier with a good map score differential after beating, if they can beat Cyclone Coupling next week, and assuming Greenleafs lose, well, Xavier can still climb as high as number 5. So a lot to look forward to. Speaking of looking forward to, Jupiter versus Talon still coming up ahead. Again, number 1 team versus number 8 so far. Could still be interesting. Have to wait and find out. See you right after this break.